today.
I am. So we got to meet just a few months ago now. I think time's flying by. I'm at a women's event. So I'm really excited because on the show today, we are joined by Gianna Mahalik, board certified clinical nutritionist, chronic inflammation expert, and the powerhouse behind autoimmune babe wellness. She's on a mission to help women take back their lives from chronic pain, fatigue, and autoimmune chaos using a proven root cause approach. So we're really excited to have you on, Gianna, because you got up and spoke when I was on a panel,
Hmm.
and it was a very vulnerable panel about what went wrong in life and what went right. And it was a bunch of women that were really talking about where we've been in business. And you got up and talked about, where you are. And I stood up and I said, I will help to mentor you. Right. So
Hmm.
we got to meet in person alone. And I'm so psyched that you're on the podcast today because I think you have a lot to offer. But I also think we want to talk about people coming together, helping each other, right? So tell
Definitely.
us a little bit about yourself and then we'll dive into all that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for just having me. It was such a pleasant surprise to just like go up at a panel and ask a question and just have a more personal and professional relationship with you. So I'm just so excited to be here. And just a little bit about me is I definitely understand how it feels to navigate life with autoimmune chaos. And so my hope for today is that anybody who feels stuck in something that, gosh, feels like it's consuming your life, you get hope and strategy today because both are so, so, so within your reach.
I love it. That sounds fantastic. So tell me a little bit about your story with autoimmune.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with scleroderma at 12 years old. If you are not familiar with scleroderma, that's a good thing. It's a very rare connective tissue condition, and I often compare it to lupus as a cousin. So they're in the same family, they're different, but they are related. And the reason they are related is because both attack the connective tissue within the body. And so I navigated scleroderma, the ups and downs of scleroderma, dealing with sclerosis of the body, fatigue, body aches, for 12 years before starting a healing journey. And so, if we're putting the math out there, that is pretty much my entire teenage years and adolescence that I navigated being sick. And I really hit a rock bottom, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, in my early 20s. And what I realized was that my identity and my diagnosis were one and the same. And this is not something abnormal for people to experience, especially once they start dealing with autoimmune disease for over 7 years. You start to forget what it's like to be healthy, and you start to
Right.
even forget who you were before being sick. And for me, this was devastating at 22 years old, 23 years old, because I had my whole life ahead of me. I was full time at University of Florida. My life should be in the chapters of starting, not in these chapters of darkness and hopelessness and despair. And so through this rock bottom, we'll just describe it, I started a healing journey. And there were many serendipitous moments within the beginning of this journey. But ultimately, it allowed me to fight for my health in a new way, one that embraced both medication that was needed at the time and a whole person approach. And through this journey, I worked with specialists, herbalists, functional medicine doctors, and was able to experience remission within 2.5 years. I am now in unmedicated remission now for 9 years. We just celebrated in April.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's got to feel great. You took
Oh,
ownership.
yeah.
You took ownership. This is the big thing that people need to take ownership of their health.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and because when you're suffering, that shouldn't be, I'm always going to be in pain forever. I'm always going to be sick forever. I'm always going to have this stuff. We need, even though we go to the doctors and the doctor doesn't tell us, hey, take this medication or this is going to be the rest of your life. You can't listen to that anymore. You have to
Yeah.
take ownership yourself, kind of explain. I mean, that's the key thing in your story. Yeah, absolutely. You're so right, Neil. And the thing is when someone is told that you're going to have a condition for the rest of your life, it's traumatic. There's something that happens within your brain. Someone is telling you pretty much that there is no hope. Right. And so we're told, okay, well, you could take these medications. They're your best bet, but we don't know if they're going to actually work or not. And that's actually most likely the case, is that they'll work for a little bit. They come with a lot of side effects. I mean, I was 13 years old on and off methotrexate, which is a oral chemo medication. So there is serious side effects here. Was that needed during that time? Yes. But when we're talking about taking responsibility of your health, something I firmly believe is medication is actually the bare minimum. We have to be taking action outside of the doctor's office so that you can protect your quality of life. Otherwise, you are quite literally playing Russian roulette with your health and you're likely to lose, especially when it comes to conditions like connective tissue disease.
Well, and I think that's a big point, and like we're kind of saying this all the same thing, but
Mhm.
I I think that it's what you're doing and helping people go through this journey. I think it's really difficult to take action yourself if you really are getting conflicting messages all over the internet. And so
Yeah.
I think people potentially maybe are looking for solutions, but it really is conflicting. Like, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do that. And they are in direct, you know, against each other, basically. So,
Yes.
where would you say, or how did you find out what you should do?
Yeah, that is such a good point, Kelly. The social media and the internet is truly a mosh posh
Yeah.
of recommendations, and we are researching, right? It's what is actually going to work for us. And so I like to call it the like how to heal guessing game. And this is kind of where the serendipitous part of my healing journey starts because I immediately felt like I needed somebody in my corner. Up until that point, I was researching, but when it comes to scleroderma in particular, and a lot of connective tissue diseases, there's scary information out there. And
Right.
you see people who are completely debilitated by their illness. And so the more research I did, the more hopeless I got.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was like, I need somebody in my corner immediately. And that was, if there is a shortcut, that is it. Getting personalized support based on where your body is at in the season that you're in.
Mhm.
Because when we're Googling and researching, even ChatGPT, right? There's a complexity to healing that really needs to consider your emotional and your physical capacity. And for example, like there could be I'm going to give an example here. So if someone's like, okay, you should eat Brussels sprouts, right? Brussels sprouts are incredible for you. But let's say for many people with connective tissue diseases, their digestive system is very weak. And so fiber can trigger inflammation if you're dealing with sluggish digestion. So is Brussels sprouts like a superfood or is it a trigger for you? And so that's the complexity that we're talking about, where
Personalization.
exactly that
Yeah.
personalization, taking into consideration your symptoms, your emotional relationship with your body and your food. I know that that was a huge part of my healing journey in the beginning because when you feel like your body has betrayed you, that's trauma.
Mhm.
And if we don't navigate that early on, you're going to, or you're more likely to, I should say, try different things, them not work. They're not leading to the goals that you want. And then subconsciously in your head, you're like, yep, thought about it. My body's broken. Yep,
Right.
not starting, like not doing hard enough. And you're reinforcing this belief
Mhm.
that you're broken and you're scarred and you're hopeless. And I call that the sick girl identity. It's this mental identity that we put on ourselves subconsciously as a survival mechanism, but it actually keeps us stuck if we're not careful. So,
Kelly, this is very intriguing. And I'm sure
Mhm.
when you work with your clients, you see that, right? You see them with that self-fulfilling,
Well,
not, it's not going to work. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to get healthy again. The self-fulfilling prophecy they kind of put on themselves.
Neil, I think in what Gianna's saying too, I think what I've seen a lot is that it's the label. So like I now have diabetes or I now have that. And like I don't think that we need to keep I think we're in a society of labeling. And so once you have that label, it's attached to you. And a lot of people aren't told that they can change that label. It can
Definitely.
it can change. It's not like you have this and this is the way it's going to be forever because of things that we can do to change that label.
Hmm.
So right now in the medical society, like there literally are, I mean, you are like the labels put on, it's in your medical record. Like this is who you are. This is your identity.
Yes.
I am a diabetic or I'm an autoimmune. That's who I am, which it's not. It's
Hmm.
not. A lot of times it can be something very different.
Absolutely. But if we're only functioning in the space of conventional medicine,
Right.
that's all that you're heard, like, or that's all that you're being told.
Totally.
And
And it's
that's,
frustrating. It's frustrating because you come with this laundry list to the doctor and you're saying, what? They don't want to help. They don't understand me. Then you
Mhm.
feel discouraged. You're like, okay, I've been really focusing on my health and that's not being reinforced. And that's a shame.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Even now that I'm in remission, I'm, approaching 9 months pregnant, and my OB, the first appointment that I had with her, I told her my medical history. As I do, I still put scleroderma on my, inbox or my intake forms. And she was in utter disbelief when I tell you that she was like, okay, well, what rheumatologist do you go to? And I told her that I was released from my rheumatologist back in 2016 because he literally told me I didn't need him anymore and I'm not taking any medications. And she's like, that doesn't happen. And the skepticism that I was hit with initially started to slowly evolve into like curiosity and then even excitement. Because she's
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, this is so cool. And I'm like, I'm so glad that this is cool for you too. But the immediate reaction is 9 times out of 10 skepticism. Like, that doesn't happen. That's not possible. When it actually is, it very much is.
Yeah, the disbelief.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm glad that your OBGYN did respond with positivity after, but the medical gaslighting is a real thing, Kelly, and it's frustrating. You know,
Oh yeah, I definitely had to show my lab work. That's like, here are my updated here are my updated labs. I promise you that I'm not making this up, kind of thing. So,
That's interesting.
hmm.
But the thing is, though, you had the knowledge and you had the
Hmm.
whereabouts to be able to talk to that medical professional about this. And again, like Neil, the gaslighting, like I think so many people just really don't know what to do. And then they don't know the questions to ask. They don't know where to go to get those questions answered. So that's where like I mean, you're one person having a baby. Like, where would the best advice for like to go to get help? I mean, I think autoimmune is such a huge population right now. More and more people being diagnosed every day.
Hmm.
Um, what would you suggest?
That is a really good question. So, one thing that I want to emphasize is when you are being told that you may or may not have an autoimmune disease, right? The the best thing that you can do is get clarity medically because that's going to lead to next steps. And I want to emphasize that because a lot of people are like, well, I want to just go on a healing journey at the first blood work or the first result that autoimmune might be on the table. And for you knowing what diagnosis you have or having a medical professional in your corner is a resource to you. And when we're talking about advocacy, a lot of people come into these spaces and it's totally understandable and it's totally valid where we're looking for, and that's the case for me and my parents because I was a child, we're looking for emotional reinforcement. We're looking for a certain level of care that, just being honest, isn't always in the bandwidth of the conventional system. There are people who wait 6 months to see a rheumatologist for
Yeah.
15 minutes. And during these 6 months, their disease is progressing and they may or may not have a diagnosis at this time. So you're coming in with being like, oh my gosh, all of this information. And sometimes, right, the doctor has great bedside manner and other times they don't. And so that is just like it just happens. So it's something that I often recommend to my clients, whether it is your first appointment or your 15th appointment with a doctor, is when we're talking about advocating for yourself, the goal is partnership, not you being right. And when you feel like there's a partnership between you and your provider, this allows you to feel more emotionally supported within the bandwidth of what they have available. And so, what I often recommend is taking a log of specific symptoms, but not just all of them, specifically the ones that are correlated to your diagnosis. So, for example, when we're talking about, scleroderma. I'm going to just use scleroderma as a recommend or as an example here. If we want to be like, okay, my skin is feeling tight, my body is feeling achy, my muscles are cramping, right? Like specific symptoms, excuse me, that will actually help the doctor do their job better.
Okay.
When you're saying like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling anxious or feeling these random posh symptoms that are infecting your life, I know that for me, my mental health and my fatigue were the biggest things that impacted my life. But when I brought those up to my doctor, they're like, "Oh, well, you have autoimmune disease, so like that's normal, right?" And you're told that that's normal, and you're like, "No, I don't feel normal." Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is where we want to separate the fatigue and the emotional support to, hey, what can I tell my doctor about the symptoms that are specifically about my diagnosis so that they can give me information on that. And then if you feel like you're having fatigue issues or emotional I don't want to say an emotional impact when it comes to your autoimmune disease, this is where you need to fight outside your doctor's office. This is where you need to seek out therapy. You need
Right.
to seek out functional support. You need to seek out lifestyle support because if you try to address these symptoms, which are valid and they can impact your quality of life in huge ways, you will likely not get the support that you're looking for.
Wow. Kelly, I love the fact she says partnership
I
because
wrote
it's
it down,
important.
Neil.
I
I
mean,
wrote
I mean
down,
that's the powerful thing is
yeah.
partner. I made the mistake when I went in. Here's my laundry list from what ChatGPT showed me, and this is
Mhm.
what I'm working on, and they don't like that. And so this is a
Mhm.
great idea to go and say, "Hey,
Let's
here are
part.
my symptoms," and kind of almost, I hate to say this, but sell them in a way to say, "I'm totally relying on you as the expert, but I'm advocating for myself in a way that's not pushy or sounds like I know more than you know."
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. We want the doctor to work within their zone of genius, and that's how you get the best support.
that's really smart advice. Really, really smart advice. I think because I think I think people are overwhelmed. And so just going in there and then we don't get the answers because a lot of times the doctors don't know. I mean, we just talked about this yesterday. We were listening to, after Sunday morning CBS, there's another show that comes on. I forget, like
Mhm.
Meet the Point or something like that.
Mhm.
And the host was attacking the guy from, I don't know if he was CDC or FDA, one of them. And the
Mhm.
guy's like, we just don't know. And she's like, wait, why don't you know?
Mhm.
And he's like, you're gonna have to work with your doctor. Well, my husband is a doctor, and he's like, and then they come to us, the next person, like, what is the answer? Well, we don't know. Like, we're gonna have to work, like, again, testing or what's going on with you, or I mean, and so that's where
Yes.
I think if you come out with them with all this stuff and the doctor doesn't have time to do the work, they're just gonna push back and be like, this person's really difficult to work with, right? That's not a partnership.
Yes.
Like, I don't want this relationship.
Mhm.
This is too much because I don't know the answers yet. And they're asking for all the answers on the first 15-minute visit.
Exactly. And so often people come in emotional and they demand answers that actually there's no answer. Something that I get asked all the time is like, what triggered my autoimmune disease? There's no way that you're going to get that answer. You're not going to know
Could
what
be a
triggered it.
simple cold. It could
Right.
be
Mhm.
stress. It could be a food. It
Yes,
really could trigger anything
Yeah.
to trigger the epigenetics.
So
exactly.
define autoimmune disease because I think we have not
Mhm.
defined that. I'm
Mhm.
still not totally understand that.
Yeah, that's such a good question. So, autoimmune disease is essentially an overactive immune system where our system that is designed to protect our health is actually causing destruction. And that destruction can be at any point in the body. That really is determined on the diagnosis, right? So you have Graves' disease, and that is your immune system attacking your thyroid, right? You have lupus, where the immune system is attacking connective tissue. And so the broad spectrum of autoimmunity can have a very wide spectrum of severity of symptoms, but that common denominator is that we have an overactive immune system, and there is damage being caused by that overactivity.
It's basically our military fighting us.
Yes.
But I see it such a hard diagnosis to figure it out. That's why you have to
Mhm.
contact someone like you, Gianna.
Mhm.
There you go.
It is. It is hard, and that's where. But there's certain tests, like Gianna's saying, there's certain tests that you have to wait, and actually have to keep. Like for instance, celiac disease, you have to keep eating gluten before you get the test done,
Yeah.
because if you go off of it before, it could actually show that you don't have celiac disease.
Oh
So
my God.
that's where it's difficult because to get into a GI or to get into a rheumatologist right now, it could take months. So you're
Yeah.
suffering through this where you're like, I just want the answers and I want to go off gluten. But to get the actual diagnosis, a lot of times you have to keep
Oh,
eating and doing that same thing.
that's so
Absolutely.
frustrating. And that's, I
Hmm.
guess, the biggest thing. It's frustrating. It's
Hmm.
absolutely frustrating why we have to wait so long for appointments. And that's because there is a demand. Will that health demand change down the line? We don't know. We see it in so many other markets
And
because they're, God.
but I do think, Neil, and I could be stepping out here, but I do really truly believe that there is a connection between maternal health and paternal health, both when we like with Gianna getting pregnant now, she has changed over her gut biome to be the most healthy for this baby. We have gone generations of really, really poor digestive gut biomes because of the lack of fiber, the lack of protein, nutrients, and vitamins. And so we have created this unstable digestive tract where our 70% of our immune system is held. And so we have to think about that. But I told a group once that potentially with doing like changing this over, it's not going to be tomorrow, but by adding in fiber rich foods and proteins, whatever, we could actually reduce our risk of autoimmune diseases. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
so much stuff that is hard, a lot of work, but the work pays off by working with people like you, Kelly, and Gianna. If
yes,
you're not,
Yes.
and it's not going to be easy.
yeah.
Nothing
Mhm.
good is easy. Remember that. You can't
Yes.
get it. I forget. If you don't, you can't have something great without. It's going to be hard. It's going to be not easy. If
Hmm.
everything was easy in life, we'd all never be upset, right? We'd never be going through these things. So, Kelly, I mean, your thoughts on Gianna? I mean, I just think it's fantastic. It's
It
something that
is.
people have to really now have that aha moment that I'm going to be my own advocate. I'm going to do a lot of research and I'm going to contact someone like Gianna and I'm going to work with a
Yeah.
registered dietitian, especially if we're dealing with certain things. And then if it's not the diet, what our diet is, then we have to go to other places. But we have to ask all the specialists for answers, right, Kelly?
Yes, and I think that I'm excited to do more work with Gianna because I really think that she can help teach dietitians and more people to get her out there to do some more advocacy work. And she takes her own clients for sure. But I think teaching other practitioners about what this looks like and how she can help others is going to be something that we're going to be working on in the near future.
It's gonna be a game changer.
Yeah.
All right. So best place, Gianna, we can contact you. Where can people contact you? Set up a call with you because I think that's so important for us to set that call up so we can
Mhm.
identify are we on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always find me on my website, autoimmunebabe.com, or on social media at autoimmune.babe. So Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. That's a great place to just check me out. Free resources are available. And then if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out.
And go to kellyschoice.org and pick up your new book, Kelly,
Yeah,
right?
on Amazon, new weight loss era. So get some information there. But thank you so much for being on today. I really think it helped a lot of people.
Oh, it,
Thank
it really
you.
made me think because a lot of times we might be thinking it's something else because our doctor said it was, and it ultimately could be just an autoimmune disease. So that's where reaching out to you, Gianna, and asking questions to all the specialists. It's a puzzle, and somehow we'll figure out that puzzle. So I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome.